in medicine, there has been zero forward movement in my opinion, in like the development of any technology that will like make this legitimate, help people find the right products, and help growers and producers develop the right products. So we have had to start our own internal system, and we were starting what I would consider somewhat simple, but it's a really robust like undertaking. We're developing a system to where I can take your medications that you take and create a medication list, add the cannabis products that you consume, and then over time we can simply, right, we're just going to simply start tracking those things and then observing what happens with the medication list. So if the medication list and the cannabis list are 10 different things now, right? You take gabapentin, Ambien, Norco, your antidepressant, your anti-anxiety medication. You're taking all of these things, and you're also adding on a 2-to-1 gummy twice a day and a tincture now and then, and a vape cart or a flower strain. Over time, what happens to your medication list? That would be an enormous set of data to have, right? We could then use that, but that seems like it should have been done 20 years ago to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why are we just starting with net? Like, why
And
is
there
it
is
just
no
happening now?
system, by the way, there is no system that exists to do that. In medicine, there is no system. They don't track cannabinoid medicines, they're not listed. There are very few medication, even interaction checkers that use cannabis. And if you listen to the speech last night, we do not know the mechanism by which CBG works in the body, therefore there is no research that can prove CBG works in the body.
Even though
You know
anecdotally we know it works.
Yeah, even though we have hundreds and hundreds of patients who will come back and tell you, when I take a 1 to 10 tincture,
Welcome.
I have
I
this
feel better.
effect, and when I take a 2 to 1
works for
CBD to THC tincture, I don't get the same pain relief. So we know it's working, we just don't know how.
Well, and that's true with a lot of drugs. We don't have a mechanism of action for about 70% of the normal drugs that people take. We have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah, so I'm a little disheartened by the lack of forward motion in medicine. I still work in the ER, and I cannot use, like, I have a patient who recently had a back surgery, had a fusion, and I've been on the phone with them almost every day for the past 4 or 5 days. The Zofran for the anti-nausea works, but it makes them really constipated. The tramadol and the Norco make them really constipated and super nauseous. So we use a vaporized inhaler to create to help the nausea, and then we're using a 2 to 1 gummy to help with the pain to make the tramadol work better. So this is all working, but I can't do that in the ER.
No.
So we're not moving
Go
forward
run for
yet.
your license. I think all of this drops back to the severe lack of education that we have, even as medical professionals. I have a doctorate degree, and we never talked about cannabis once. In all of the years that I went to school, nobody talked about the endocannabinoid system. I didn't even know it existed. And we found it in the early 90s,
Yeah.
but no one talks about it. And no one talks about the cannabinoids. And if you want to learn about cannabis, you have to do your own research. And what we need are nurse practitioners, pharmacists, physicians, everybody to have some little bit of education in their schooling. Because there's so much misinformation. And we have Reefer Madness 2.0, and nobody wants to believe that this works, and it all comes back to our lack of education.
Technology in your field then seems to...
Yeah, I started working with oncologists. When we started treating cancer, specifically with diet, cannabis oil, we were actually helping people out of hospice and this reverse process of elimination and adverse effects of chemotherapy and radiation, of course. But really understanding the endocannabinoid system, pain management. We were having a really combative nature with the doctors in Oregon because they really wouldn't let us in and even talk to the patients. So I had to do a one-to-one with the doctors outside of the firm, if you will. And I came to the direct, determination that we need to start creating these facilities for ourselves. We need to start creating facilities by us, for us, by like individuals like yourself, her, him, all of you understanding. And one of the really unique things about having a medical cannabis card is that by having a medical cannabis card, we can do all that. We can study, we can independent study, we can do research and development on human beings, understanding the endocannabinoid system, understanding the strain specifics, and really hone in on the cultivation of cannabis for what it truly represents. And I think that's the only way that we're really going to be successful here in Utah is if we create that endeavor. I did that out in Bend, Oregon. We created a social club. We created a place where doctors and patients and cultivators and farmers and breeders alike could talk about the fundamentals of cannabis for what it truly represents. That is the only way we are going to have a true representation of having the help of everybody getting together, teaching and showing it people with the educated process of formalities of administration, formalities of milligrams. If CBG does work, start holding our own dossiers, holding our own documentations, proving to the people in Salt Lake City, Utah, and agricultural departments that we can hold ourselves responsibly, work with individuals in the pharmaceutical companies and the ER and doctors alike, and specialists, and show them that we have the proof of the viable use of cannabis in Utah.
All right, I'm going to put a challenge out to myself. I'm involved in a number of different training, learning management systems type of things. If we were to put forward a mastery of cannabis program, do you think we'd have any problem finding the assistance of best practices and that type of thing and put it into an online learning curriculum? Because it's obvious that it's
Call me.
missing.
I'm working on this right now. We're trying to create some CE, some continuing education for some of these medical professionals.
Yeah, Mandy.
I want to speak to this exactly, right? I think that the industry has...
This is Mandy Kerr. She runs the Global Hemp Association. She's not a flunky.
Kind of. I'm just kidding. So, speaking to standard development, technology development, in order for us to get a good education program in place, I think some standard development has to happen first, right? And so, yes, I think we will have a problem with it, especially with some of the hiccups and the unknown on what is that best practice, what is that SOP, and what's different here compared to South in Utah versus Bend, Oregon versus Washington. And so yes, I think we need it, but yes, I think that there are some developments in the industry that have to happen, and I think it has to come personally from where FDA has got to step in and make some change.
Yeah, standardizing the education of the medical practice has been one of the big factors in why we don't have a standardized medical school program or a cannabinoid medicine program in medical schools across the country, is because there's no standard, there's no industry standard and medical standard to go on. If you're taught to be a patient associate or a bud tender, there are many different courses you can take. And I don't know those courses, but I would venture to say 99% of them are not very great.
No.
And when you go to medical programs and you want to research a learning management system, there are quite a few. If you look at the Department of Health, they've approved 4. I've taken 2 of the 4. Both are subpar.
They're so bad. You're so nice.
I had a feeling.
And I would say, what would you say, Tim, in the grow and the production side? Is there a standard, or is there just 37 different types of grow programs in 37 states?
But right now, in my opinion, there's very little grow programs at all. And it all starts from the farming. It all starts from the seed. It really does. And if we can understand cultivation for what it truly represents and working with those industries and facilities, we can really branch to the higher intellectual value of that strain specific and farming and then getting into that. But it all starts from the growth. Currently right now, we've been growing indoors here in Salt Lake City, Utah for approximately 2 years now. And so we have to rely on ourselves. to have a group of individuals that are like-minded to start from the beginning of the facilitation of cultivars, which are the strains, and then cultivators, which are the growers, and finding out the fundamentals of those strain specifics. My research and development has always gone back to strain specific. To have it the first representation be the most positive one from the get-go so that people start taking us seriously. We can't go through a trial and error. We have individuals like ourselves who are out there that have gone through a specific trial and error and have failed as many times as we've succeeded. So we have to have that first representation be the most precise one. If we can do that and hold ourselves on a professional level, we can actually lead the way in innovative technology when it comes from growing to pharmacists, to pharmaceuticals, to bud tenders, and then ultimately the most important thing in this industry is the patients, the people who are consuming the product. The end product always has to be the patients. People talk about the money and the rehabilitation, that's important too as well, but I truly do understand that the patients have to have trust. They have to trust us as being bud tenders, pharmacists, and growers to understand what this plant can actually do. So that's my idea on that is it always starts from the farm, and we have to start nipping that in the bud, if you will.
Exactly.
And I actually have something to your point with the FDA. The FDA is terrified of cannabis
They're a big pharma.
because it's a polypharmaceutical. And it is so hard to study a polypharmaceutical. If they decide to reschedule cannabis, we will be 20 years before they ever finish enough research to legalize it. What I would like to see first is decriminalization. Because if they reschedule it, they will be required to do the research on every component of cannabis that is considered pharmaceutical.
What do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to be descheduled, or do you think Big Pharma's in with hooks already?
Well, Pfizer already bought a cannabis company,
Well,
which also concerns me.
And they didn't just buy CBD.
No,
They've now
they
bought
bought
multiple
cannabis.
cannabinoids.
Yeah. So,
Marinol, let's look at Marinol, what they're doing. They're synthesizing right now as we speak, specific cannabinoids with chemicals to synthesize things. It's not really just, they're detaching from the endocannabinoid system. So they're already, she's right, they're already synthesizing and putting chemicals in. And they're going to make their product, not our product.
and they're gonna try to make it isolates.
Yes.
Well,
And
that's
we
how you
know
have
the
it.
isolates don't work. We've had Epidiolex and we've had Marinol, and they just don't work the same. Because it's too much.
Where the pharmaceutical company is at, where they've been, where the cannabis industry is currently at, where they've grown. We are their biggest competitor. They lose tons of money every day because of cannabis growers and cannabis consumers, and they don't like us. So, one way that you correct that is very similar to the organic food industry in small towns. Kellogg's now owns a raffle of organic companies, and they do whatever they want. And we don't know that Amy's macaroni and cheese that's always been the best organic macaroni now is now owned by them, and they can put whatever they want into it. And nobody knows that Pfizer bought them. They're doing it quietly. It's how they cover their tracks and retain that profit that they're now losing. So, it starts with the growers by producing excellent medicine and having excellent practices in their gigantic facilities, which is very hard to do, or they're very, very small, private, personal growing for themselves or their family or animals. This is what we are up against. It is going to be our biggest fight ever. Way harder than somebody knocking on our door asking us what we're smoking, what we're selling.
I've already had the cops almost break down my door.
This is now the real because this is how they make it happen. Buy up the companies and dismantle us.
So I like this thread, and I kind of want to, and I want to bring it, I want to tweak it just a little bit and simplify it from my perspective. And that is, we as people, we as humans, we just want to be consuming things. We're consumers. right? We just, that's our nature. We consume things. We consume products. We consume plants. We just consume. And we want to be able to consume safe and effective things that make us feel better, right? Or keep us headed on our life journey, whatever that is. You know? But today it might be, maybe I need a cannabinoid product, or maybe I want to build something with a hemp product that makes me feel good about consuming something that is not harmful to the earth or not harmful to my body. It's clean, it's natural, right? We wanted to do that in the 80s, and we were given the option of the pharmaceuticals in the 90s, and that seemed to make sense. They were proven to be safe, right? You go to the doctor, you're taking something safe. And so I would essentially simplify it, because I got a lot to do to be in that kind of a war with the huge industry, the drug industry. I just want to help people decide on products to feel better. I want to trust that there is a standard that I'm sending the patient to a pharmacy or to a person that lives and abides by those standards, has the same goals and aspirations that I do for my patients, that you do for your health and wellness. That they're purchasing products that are tested and grown in a way that is according to the standard we have all decided, right? And I do think that there's a lot of people that are really smart in this industry and want so badly to move things forward. And we tend to be pretty negative about, the FDA and pharmaceutical companies and all of these things they're doing. But on the other hand, we're all here. We're all, I would venture to say most of us, if not all of us, are cannabis consumers. We like it. We enjoy the process, right? I can speak for myself last night. I enjoy the process of ridding myself of my back pain from, consuming cannabis. And I know the product comes from a great place. And I know the product is purchased in a safe environment. Yeah. So it makes sense. I do think we're moving forward. And if we end up focusing on just what's right in front of us, which is we want to just feel better. As long as we're all on the same page, it still works.
The private consumer is really who influences that movement.
Yep.
So us in the industry continuing to educate and share with the consumer and the patient is our...
And that's definitely my biggest push, is education. That's literally all I do, is education. It's everything I focus on. It's what I do every day. It's what I do on my days off. It's all consuming. So the more people that we can talk to about this and make it less scary. And I'm not just educating patients, I'm educating their families, I'm educating their neighbors. People that don't ever want to use cannabis, we're still educating them. So it takes away that stigma. We can make it not scary, so when the neighbor is using cannabis, they don't think about it anymore. Normalizing cannabis use the way we've normalized so much of the other medications that we just think of as normal.
Wow. So, I'd like to find out from each of our panelists, we'll start with you. You're in this business because you care in some way, shape, or form. It's not just the money that you're going to make. Can you share your journey of what brought you to where you are?
So when I was 10 years old, my father was growing cannabis illegally in the basement on 21st South and State Street. I was 10 years old. I wanted to know what my father was doing. My mother let me go downstairs and I looked at this plant for the first time. When I came home from the hospital, I was, they put a turquoise ring on my finger and a marijuana joint in my toe and took a picture with my uncle. My uncle's no longer alive. He died from pancreatitis about 4 years ago. I've been integrated into this plant some way, shape, or form since I was a kid. I knew that I was always going to grow this plant and do something with it. I then started growing out in the mountains of Baniful, Utah, and Davis County illegally for approximately 13 years. By doing that, I honed in on the very essence of the fundamentals of the plant and how to grow them. I then stopped doing that and moved to Oregon, of course, so that I could pursue my dream of legitimizing myself and opening up dispensaries and running them and doing the formalities of giving patients medical cannabis, THCN specifically, and through the medical marijuana program. I was allowed to do that. I've been humbled by this plant. It's my teacher. So for me, I have a personal connection with this plant. It's always what I will do. My number one goal is always the patient will come first. Patients over profit. Compassion must come first. If you don't have compassion in your heart, everything else that you do will fail. Just like you, my whole sole goal is to educate about the cannabinoids of the plant, strain specifics, and the lifestyle that we can live. If this doesn't reverse or help you with your treatments, at the very least give you the best quality of life. So for me, the plant is me and I am the plant. But it doesn't belong to me. I don't have brands. I don't hold things sacred like that. I share everything that I have. I share my strain specifics. I share my seeds, my information. I consult patients for free. We consult hemp farmers on how to be good stewards and provide for the environment. So that's kind of where I'm at, as I am the plant. And I just want to help patients succeed in their endeavor and feeling good. And that is it.
Fantastic.
Oh, my story starts a really long time ago, but not when I was 10. In school, I teased my now husband that I was going to be a cannabis pharmacist, and I would tell him to get ready because we were going to leave the state, because that's what I was going to do, and I just knew it in my heart. And then I started pharmacy school, and about my last year at school, my dad got diagnosed with cancer. And he did great for a little while. And then he was on the 3 worst chemotherapies you can get on. So doxorubicin, vincristine, and cisplatin. And the joke with cisplatin is we call it cisplatin because it will end you. And then doxorubicin has a lifetime limit. And once you reach that limit, you can never have that drug again in your whole life. That's the end. That's all you can have. And he is a giant of a man. He was 6'5", he was like 250 pounds. And all of a sudden he was 180 pounds. And I looked at my mom and like, you will lose him. You will lose him. He couldn't eat, he had sores in his mouth. And so we got him medical cannabis illegally. We took him outside of the state, we got it from wherever we could. And all of a sudden he gained weight back. And the nurses that were doing his chemotherapy were like, wow, we've never had a patient gain the weight back that they lost during chemo. And at the time that he had been diagnosed, I was actually on the oncology floor of Primary Children's doing my rotations. And it was the worst thing I've ever seen. I could never do pediatrics. I am a soft-hearted baby. And those little kids, they would get Epidiolex or they would get Marinol. And it would help them a little bit, but not the change that I saw in my dad when we went and got him illegal cannabis. And so he got better. He got better, he's still alive. And it was amazing. And it was after that I was like, if I could do that for one human being, my whole degree would be worth it. And I got into regular pharmacy for a little while. I worked at Smith's, I worked around some pain clinics, I helped people with their opioids, and then the murmurs started of passing legal cannabis here in Utah. And I told anyone I could get my hands on that I was going to do that. And I became a compounding pharmacist for a while, and the murmuring got louder. And one day it passed, and I started emailing every single person that got a license. And I was like, I am the best pharmacist in Utah. I didn't care if it was true at the time. I lied. And I was like, you will hire me, and I will be an amazing cannabis pharmacist. And Wholesome was the first people that got back to me, and they had the same vision that I had. I want to take it out of patients.
I don't want a patient in and out in 15 minutes. I don't care if I have to see that patient 17 times. I will see that patient 17 times. And so I took the job with them, and that is how I got here. And now I'm up to my eyeballs in it. So, thank you. That was a long story.
I got into medicine in 2014, worked in GI surgery and trauma in West Valley. Took care of a lot of people that were really, really sick in the ICU and through major, what we would call disasteroma surgeries, right? That's the diagnosis of just tragedy. I contributed certainly to addicting people to opioids. I would prescribe them 90 Percocets when they would leave with long acting, and I would tell them, look, we're gonna have to work on this later, right? You have this pain, you have this issue now. This is really the only way you can get through it that is legal. And so we'll have to work on your dependency to this at another time. And my sister also has had cancer 3 times. She's fighting her 3rd bout of cancer. And I had a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, who applied for one of the licenses and was always trying to convince me to use my love of the plant and my knowledge of medicine to really help people make a change. So I started seeing people in January of 2020, put my name on the Google map downtown, and I started basically doing everything that was even possible, right? A YouTube channel, a podcast, a blog. It didn't matter what it was. I was talking to the patients on my own, and that's how I got into it. Everybody is self-taught in this industry. There isn't a formal education, so we all just taught ourselves as we went. And it was so scary. The first patient, I remember specifically the first patient I saw downtown. I was subleasing a therapist office, and I remember writing the letter that we used to write and thinking, I'm literally signing my name to a federally illegal substance like right now. This is a terrible idea. It was fear, but really rewarding. That was before COVID times, and everybody gave me a hug. Everybody.
Yeah.
Like, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
God. Thank you. Yeah. It was cool.
I've learned some things as a patient that was sneaking in THC stuff for my feet long before we had something in here. I know the risk that you run there, to be able to go forward. But all 3 of you, again, as I said earlier, you have a passion. You want to be able to help out. It's very important. And even though this hasn't been able to translate into a transcendental technology or something like that, all of those innovations start with people. And so it's because of people like you and many more within the community that we're going to be able to get to a position of best practices and standards and things like that. It's just a matter, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So pretty much a hand to our incredible panel. And I'm sure all 3 of them will be around if you want to be able to do some one-on-ones in the next few minutes as well. So thank you.
If you have questions, comments, smart remarks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.